podcast. My name is Andre, and I'm joined here by my friends.
Nash.
Cool.
Our main topic today will be about anxiety, mainly how school contributes to it, how to talk to someone who is experiencing it, and how to cope with and get over it.
So first talking about how school causes and builds on anxiety. Obviously, when you're stressing for a test or just a big exam, it's obviously going to be your priority. And it's obviously going to put you in a lot of stress. And you got to just power through, but it is hard. It is usually that some people, based on our information, that a lot of people have had difficulties during school with a big test, a big exam, or just hard fought times.
So you're really just saying the parts of it, like the test and exam, just build up
Yeah.
the stress levels and
Yeah.
cause the anxiety?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And might I add that there's also homework and there's projects, and those also have a weigh-in on different
True.
on how you schedule your schedule, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of like a tier system in the sense of lower grade things like homeworks cause less stress over tests.
Exactly.
Tier systems,
Yeah.
grade 5 is a test, for example.
Yeah.
It's totally.
And there's also other you have extracurriculars, so you might have to balance sports or a club
Yeah.
while you're also doing your homework.
Yeah.
So that must be really stressful.
Yeah. Maybe also getting in some family time.
Exactly.
Other things.
Yeah.
And maybe trying to get your sleep schedule up to date. It might be just difficult. It might be stressful, and it's hard.
That's true. I myself have a difficult time trying to balance my homework and sleep schedule because sometimes I stay up way past the time I'm supposed to sleep.
I feel that,
Yeah.
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 Okay. So we'll move on to our next idea: how to talk to someone who is experiencing anxiety. And there are 8 key tips to talking to someone with anxiety. So we'll start with the first one. It is set aside time and have no distractions. So what it's saying is basically have a non-judgmental space where there are nothing to distract the person who is expressing themselves, so they can express their feelings freely.
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense. I see what you're saying.
Kind of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
For the second tip, we have let them share as much or as little as they want. Yeah, it's a bit hard,
It's
but
a hard one.
you wanna let them lead the discussion and don't put pressure on them for anything because they might not be ready for it. So you won't try or don't try to be overbearing.
Yeah.
Jesus, me and relationships. Okay.
Okay, we have our third point. Don't try to diagnose or second guess their feelings. You are most likely not a therapist or in that field. So try not to make assumptions and jump to conclusions with your own solutions or diagnosis.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
Makes
you're
sense.
saying when it comes to how you're feeling, you should go to a doctor to see what they take away from it, to see what they believe you
Yeah.
have, and not try to diagnose yourself.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of, but
Yeah.
I feel you should only go to the doctor if you're ready for it. You're not
When you're
completely
okay.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
true. That is
right.
true.
Yeah. Our fourth point is to keep questions open-ended. You don't want to say things that have a yes or no response. You want to say, why don't you tell me how you're feeling, so they can explain how they're feeling and go in depth.
Okay.
Fifth point is talk about their well-being. Talk about ways of de-stressing from their lives, maybe whether it's from sports or school or any of those things.
Especially when it's time.
That would be
Yeah.
very hard and difficult.
Our sixth point is listen carefully to what they tell you. Make sure you understand them and they understand you, so there's nothing lost in translation. And to make sure that they feel acknowledged and no, they're not talking to a wall.
A real listener, actually
Exactly.
paying attention
Yeah.
to your
Uh-huh.
Kind of like that.
Exactly. Our seventh point is to offer them help, maybe in professional support or a hotline or something along those lines, to provide them information or guide their needs. And then we have our final 8th point, which is know your limits.
Probably the
Yeah.
toughest
No,
one.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
Tough.
Know your limits because back to the which one is it? Back to the second point, you might be sometimes people become too overbearing, and while you might not know that you're being overbearing, and that's not like a bad thing, it just might affect the person in ways that you won't be able to recognize probably.
Yeah. 'Cause then
Yeah, totally.
one thing just to add quickly before we move on to our next point. For me personally, when it comes to knowing your limits, I always find when I'm helping people who are dealing with mental illnesses or diagnoses, or I'm dealing with it, for example, I don't really know when the right time is to stop because I haven't learned that yet through how much I've experienced.
Right.
Yeah.
So basically, it's saying if you feel that like they're in danger, or if it's gone too far and it's too extreme, then they should probably seek some medical attention. I'm sorry.
Okay, and then that brings us to our final point, and that relates to our final idea, which is how to get over and cope with anxiety. So when it comes to getting over and coping with anxiety, there's a couple different things you want to ask yourself. There are two different types of anxiety, which they believe is called quick sporadic anxiety, which is pretty much altering from your focus on events to tasks. So your questions, so one way to get over just quick happen anxiety, kind of like how panic attack occurs, it's all of a sudden, is to question your brain if the belief's outcome will be. So generally, for example, what I mean by this is if you're presenting in front of a small group, sometimes people will stress a whole bunch over presenting in a small group when they shouldn't. When it's not equal to, the stress isn't equal to the situation.
It's happened.
So one way to get over this anxiety is to ask your brain, well, is this really a real fear? Is this a realistic fear to be scared for this? Because if it's in front of a small group of your friends, it's not really a small fear. Because there's not really a major amount of anxiety there versus what you're feeling.
I got a good point. And let's say probably like an option is that they're scared of like failure or something like that along those lines. But if it's just like in front of your friends, they'll probably forget it in just like a few seconds.
Probably joke about it.
Exactly.
Yeah, probably joke about it.
And then anxiety is also mostly commonly associated with a lack of permanent or practice. So one way to quickly get over anxiety is to make sure you practice. So then bringing it back to, for instance, a small group, another way to get over these quick spurts of anxiety is to understand that if you practice like it's a speech, then you're practicing it so much that you'll know it.
Exactly.
You don't have a reason to be scared.
Okay.
Soon enough, you won't even have to like read off the paper or
Yeah.
read off the computer.
Totally.
It'll just
And
come
then-
to your mind.
The last one I have here for this one is other quick, easy ways to deal with short-term anxiety includes walking away from the situation.
Yeah.
So short-term anxiety can be resolved quickly with just walking away. So if it's just like, like I said, bring it back to the group again. It's in front of a group of people, and this time it's your class. You can't deal with that. You can tell your teacher, can I just go walk outside for a minute? And I guarantee they'll let you go.
Yeah.
You just need to express what you're feeling.
That's always the hardest one, honestly.
Then the second part of anxiety I'm going to bring that to is the long term, which is regular experience anxiety from day to day. So when anxiety is more common, you can learn to identify your triggers. Most people have a trigger that starts anxiety up. In long-term anxiety, it's best to identify your triggers and notice events in which they may be sparked or other parts of your life that can start them, and either avoid them or prepare yourself to deal with anxiety. So a trigger, for example, let's go with somebody who has maybe ADHD.
Right.
Yep.
Or somebody who, just like they want everything to be perfect.
Yeah.
If somebody, they're going to deal with long-term anxiety if everything isn't perfect. Because they always want things to look neat and nice.
That's true.
Yeah.
So
That's
then
obviously.
they have to identify the triggers. They have to find out, okay, well, if I'm going to go out here and I know there's always this place here and it's a piece of art that just doesn't look right to them, you just can't look at it.
Right.
Just look away. Right?
Yeah.
You have to identify what triggers your anxiety and just try to eliminate it. Another long-term anxiety is there are calming medicines or calming supplements such as green tea, lemon balm, and dark chocolate. They can help lower your anxiety levels and may take 3 months for your body to properly use these substances to calm your body down. So it is more of a hard way to calm your body down by taking food,
Right.
Oh, yeah.
and it's also not a way I would say to look for when it comes to long-term.
I mean,
I'd say you find your triggers instead of looking towards calming medicines because I don't think you want to support your anxiety off of medicines.
Yeah, like
I don't think that's what you would do.
be required or like be codependent with whatever it is to help you.
Exactly.
I mean-
Because eventually, we all know medicines will stop working.
Yeah.
I mean, like 3 months to have that food kick in is kind of a long term.
Yeah.
It's
Wow.
definitely one. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
And our final point here for long-term regular experience was to keep your body and mind healthy. So physical exercise. Exercising regularly, eating well-balanced meals, and getting enough sleep all contribute to your physical and mental well-being, which dramatically affects your mental health.
Right.
Yep.
So just because staying physically active helps you improve your self-image of you, which helps improve your mental health. Pretty much overall, it's just they go hand in hand, they cooperate.
Yeah. It's been a while, and there have been a lot of points brought up, and it's been amazing. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the Behind the Maps podcast, and stay tuned for our next episode talking about depression and ways to deal with it.
In case you need help or just want to talk to my friend Nash, he has some hotlines to contact.